What's up, guys? So before I get into some tips here for a rope lat pullover, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe. Give me some thumbs up. If you've got questions, comments, concerns, feelings, please leave them below in the comments section. And let's hope you guys enjoy this video. All right, guys, so I've got some form and setup tips here for a rope cable pullover. So first and foremost, I want to talk a little bit about what's the training goal. What muscles are we trying to train? What's really the advantage of this as opposed to, maybe doing a pull down or a row variation? How does this fit into programming? Then I'm going to go into some form and setup tips and just talk about body position and how setup can influence, what part of the range of motion we're really trying to, train or bias. And then from there, I'm actually gonna give some tips as far as you're taking sets as far as possible. What does this actually look like when you're trying to work? What do you do as you actually get to or slightly past failure? So the first thing I wanna go over is realize it is a rope pullover or a rope lat pullover. We're trying to train the lats. So I wanna give some people some visual on this as far as what does that actually look like. So aside from that, one of the big advantages we have here, aside from trying to work the lats, is a lat exercise that takes the elbow out of it. So again, obviously takes the elbow flexors out of it to a certain degree. Obviously it still has to be holding on to something, so you can't have a limp upper arm, but for the most part, you're taking elbow flexors out of it. So that's a big advantage, one, as far as this compared to a row or a pull down. If you have a hard time taking your arms or biceps out of a back exercise, this can be a good opportunity. I've got this rope tied around Cody because I don't want him going anywhere. Dad jokes. But no, really I want to help people kind of figure out really what are they trying to feel? What are they trying to focus on? Because again, a lot of people complicate this one. Do I move my arm? Do I pull my shoulder blades down? What really starts? What really initiates? And the reality is it's going to be slightly different from person to person. You have to have at least a little bit of an understanding as far as lat anatomy goes, what joints it crosses over and what it influences. The reason I think this is tricky is because you have your GH joint, which basically you have your shoulder blade, and you have your upper arm bone, your humerus that sits on the side of your shoulder blade. So literally that is one joint in and of itself. And then you have your entire shoulder blade, basically, it attaches to stuff up here. So obviously it attaches to your collarbone, attaches to your humerus, but for the most part, it floats pretty well over the rib cage. So realize that floating and moving over the rib cage is another joint. So for our purposes here, your lat really can influence two joints. So I've got this tied here. So sometimes, again, for simplicity purposes, just realize muscles have an insertion and they have an origin. Now, the lat has kind of a broader origin. We're just going to talk basically about the parts that attach down here kind of towards your hip, share some fascia with glutes and other stuff down there, but basically realizing that lats go down here. So I've got this tied around. It's going to insert somewhere-ish in your upper arm. Anatomy nerds, relax. I understand, obviously, this isn't going to be perfect, but if we are starting, so realize when we're doing this rope pullover or doing a lat pull down, we're starting somewhere up in this position. If you just imagine your lat is a rope pulling down here, and I pull this rope, what's going to move? In theory, we could keep our shoulder blade still and move just that upper arm in the shoulder joint. In theory, we could keep that shoulder joint still and we could use our lat to just pull the shoulder blade down. Cody's gonna pull his shoulder blade down for this demo. But what happens for the most part when people do lat stuff is if you let your shoulder blade let your shoulder blade stretch up, if you let your upper arm extend up overhead, when this pulls down, they're both gonna move. So in general, if this pulls down, your shoulder blade's gonna pull down at the same time you start to flex at that GH joint as well too. So if most people can just have this visual here of this is essentially your lat, it's pulling this direction, it's gonna just move that whole upper arm, maybe that shoulder joint by itself, and it's gonna pull down your whole shoulder blade as well too. So again, hopefully that helps someone, or hopefully just someone knows how to tie someone up now for other purposes, dad joke purposes, PG versions or purposes. Whatever. Anyway, on with this video. So hopefully that gives someone a little bit of a visualization of what we're trying to do there, help you initiate. And again, at the end of the day, just pick something, focus on your lat. If you can feel your lat, if you contract it hard, just let stuff go where it goes. So I'm gonna unleash Cody now for a brutal set of pullovers here. So aside from that, what's the other advantage of a pullover? You can really overload different parts of this shoulder flexion extension range of motion. So you can load the lats in a shortened position and you can load them in a stretch position. And really with one exercise, you can train through the full contractile range of motion. The only thing you really have to pick is what do you want to bias from the start? So if you're stood further back and you're actually doing pulls here, basically whenever that cable is 90-ish degrees to your upper arm, that's the part of the range of motion that's heaviest. So if you're stood back and standing very upright, this is a great position for biasing the lats when they're fully shortened or fully contracted. If you're a lot more bent over and closer to the cables, Then again, you can see how this cable, especially once Cody goes, I'll show, is closer to 90 here. You're making that lengthened position a lot heavier. You're overloading up here, in which case the range of motion might be a little bit shorter here. And you can do two things. You can always go kind of in the middle, so a little bit bent forward, and you can basically have some load when it's fully stretched, overloaded in the middle, and still some load fully shortened. And if you're really coordinated, you can actually kind of move through it. So you'll see some people doing this sometimes, right? Sometimes they're just dancing around, but you can basically lean forward a little bit as you come into that stretch position. So you're getting some of the overload here. And as you control stand up, you can actually stand up a little bit through and again, overload that shortened position. The trick is you're not moving fast enough that you're actually using momentum and not actually really doing anything. But if the thing kind of stays in the same spot the whole time, you're really not doing a whole lot of anything. It's kind of almost like an isometric through that range of motion. So I'm gonna have Cody demo a couple. I'm gonna have him demo first, taking a step back, nice upright posture, stand tall. And so again, if you were gonna choose this position, realize you're training for this end range, this lat contraction here. So if you're coming back up, I wouldn't take it a whole lot further than maybe right here. So again, if he goes to the point where that upper arm is right in line with the cable, there's basically no tension through the shoulder joint, very little tension through the lat. So you could go one position here. Cody's gonna demo a couple. And as you're coming into this finished position here, I always recommend feeling like you're driving your tricep into your lat, keeping your upper arms tight at your side. This is not one to see how far back you can come, because that'll turn into a lot of rear delts, but it's about contracting, pulling that lat to initiate, smashing it into the side. Now, if you wanted to overload more of the lengthened position, walk forward just a teeny bit, bend forward mainly at the hips, a little further, there you go. And so now you can see this is fairly close to 90 here, so there's still a lot of tension here, and you could kind of stay right about there. Pretty good profile here for making it heavier at the top, nice and heavy through the mid-range, and actually pretty light as you come into the finish. So if I was gonna have one default position, this would kind of be it for this exercise, where you're covering almost the lat's full contractile range, and it has a pretty good profile. Or you could stand up just a little bit, go kind of right here. And again, this is gonna be very, very similar. If there's gonna be a difference on this one, is it's gonna be just a little bit lighter at the end range as you're coming to the top. And I'll have Cody demo the other one if he can, where he leans forward a little bit here. So that's a little bit more overload there, and then slowly stands up tall to finish. And then basically that's allowing you to overload the end ranges a little bit more. And again, the only thing with that one you just have to be careful is that you're not moving too fast and using momentum. But all of those are pretty good options. So again, thanks Cody. The thing to consider with all of those is, what is your goal before the set? So again, do I want to overload just here? Do I want as much range of motion as possible? Do I want to overload the length and position? And as you guys will see on some of my programs, and sometimes there's an asterisk. So I might say lean forward, just the stretch position, start in the short position, whatever it is. And then something to consider here for extending sets. This could be a nice place to overload different positions, and that can also be a good way to extend the set, meaning muscles are pretty much always weakest in the shortened position. So I could start and go 10 reps to the point where I'm done and I can't finish here, and again, hit failure here. Then what you can do is lean forward and you can extend the set, because you're weaker in that shortened position, you'll be able to keep going with the same weight through that mid and lengthened ranges. So again, that opens up some opportunities as well too. And again, that's something you'll occasionally see in programming. With the same weight, I'll say start here. And then if you want to extend the set to or past failure, you can go ahead and lean forward, get in a position where you're stronger, the muscle length is stronger, and extend the set through there. So hopefully some of those tips help you, again, one, identify what are you doing the exercise for, give you some form setup tips and cues, and then also let you know how to take the most out of the set. All right, guys, in case you thought I was lying in the first place, wasn't that valuable? If you didn't already, please give me that thumbs up, hit a subscribe. And if there's something that you guys want to see, give me some feedback in the comments below, because I look at that. And until the next one, guys, take it easy.